Welcome, everybody, to the Health and Hunger Summit, and we are going to be talking about the 21st Century Emergency Food Programs, a topic that I know is relevant to all of us. This is a panel discussion, so I'm glad that you joined us. I'm looking forward to learning from each of our panelists, as well as from all of you who are joining us in the audience. So just a quick note, we want you to engage with us. The easiest way to do that is to use your chat feature and enter any questions, or if you want us to do some follow-ups, I'll be monitoring that as we go through this panel discussion and lifting up your questions so that we can discuss it as a group. So please feel free to get engaged and leave your comments and your questions in that chat feature. We have a great panel for you today, and I'm really excited about where we're going to go with this. My name is Patti Habeck. I am President and CEO of Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, and I also am board chair for Feeding Wisconsin. So I serve both my region on the eastern side of the state, as well as being involved with statewide programs through Feeding Wisconsin. I know there's some great programs throughout the state and a lot of great ideas. So that's where we're going to head today with this panel conversation. How we're going to do this is we're going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves, and then we have some lead questions for the panelists to answer. And again, I will be monitoring the chat, so please engage with the panelists through the chat feature. We are going to stay as a big group and not break down into individual rooms unless we need to have some smaller conversations at the end of our big conversations. So the goal is really to stay in this room and to do a big group chat. So I hope this works out, and I'm looking forward to it. So now that you know who I am, I want to send you over to meet some of our panelists. So we're going to start with Heidi Gould. Heidi, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Thanks, Patti, for having me. My name is Heidi Gould. I am the director of the Jewish Community Pantry in Milwaukee. We are a program of the Harry and Rose Samson Family JCC in Milwaukee. I earned my MSW with a specialization in school social work. And then I gravitated toward food justice work and food pantry work after seeing kind of the impact of food insecurity on my students and my teams. The Jewish Community Pantry has been in existence for more than 40 years. We've been guided by our Jewish values of tikkun olam, of tzedek, which is justice, and kindness. And our current site at 29th and Center in Milwaukee has been in existence for 10 years. We serve the residents of Metcalf Park and Amani primarily in Milwaukee. And only about 5% of the people we serve are Jewish. The rest of our households identify as Black or white non-Jewish individuals. And we also have about 40% of the individuals we serve in a given month are children within a household. Our program takes pride in listening to the residents and listening to the community we serve in order to provide food that they want, food that's culturally appropriate, and make sure that we can give everybody in the household the nutrition they need to stay healthy and participate in their lives in the way that they want to.
Good. Thank you, Heidi. Thanks for telling us a little bit about your organization. Moving on, Dale, do you want to share, introduce yourself and share a little bit about your organization?
Hi, my name is Dale Davis. I'm the operations manager for the SWEPS Food Pantry, and just recently, within the last year, we've merged with two other programs. So we now have a program called Focus, Feeding Our Community with United Services. We have a food pantry, a meal program, and a backpack program. The food pantry has been around about 46 years, and we served the Southwood County area here in Wisconsin. And we have numerous programs, outreach programs, education programs that we do in the community. And we are currently preparing to relocate into a new location. We're under construction right now to possibly further expand the programs that we're doing currently. We have developed not only our education programs and our hydroponic programs, but we've also developed some outreach into communities for groups that cannot come into the pantry. And that has been a challenge, but a blessing as well. So thank you for being here, Patti.
Great. Thanks, Dale. I can't wait to learn more about some of your programs around hydroponics. Jules, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know about your program?
Thank you, Patti. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jules Lee. I'm the Food Security Manager at Middleton Outreach Ministry, and my preferred pronouns are he and they. I've been at Middleton Outreach Ministry, also known as MOM, for 14 months. And during these 14 months, I've come to learn about the programs or outreach services that are afforded not only to Middleton, but throughout Dane County. We have a food program in which we care for those who come to our site or for those who are homebound, in that they receive the menu and they get to choose from the things that we have. And the foods that we give to them are provided through the Emergency Food Assistance Program, Second Harvest Food Bank, and many of our community donors. And so these items are all packed into a bag, and they are either placed in the person's trunk or they are delivered to that individual who may be homebound. We also work with the Next Chapter academic tutoring, in that we provide snacks that are also peanut free to those who may need a little help with their homework. We also have community gardens that help support our food program with fresh produce. And then we have many donors that supports our programs in providing foods to people of all ages. I come into food security with a background formerly in Indiana. I worked at the community kitchen of Monroe County in Bloomington, Indiana, and for 11 years. And I thought to myself that, maybe I could do more to address health equity and food equity and look at how this supports the individual, also known in the public health language as social determinants of health. So I decided to return to school at Indiana University and pursue a bachelor's and master's degree in public health. I then came to Wisconsin under the fellowship sponsored by the University of Wisconsin's Population Health Institute. And that helped me address equity for all Wisconsinites. Once that fellowship came to an end, this position opened up. And I decided to apply based on my work at the community kitchen and my work overall in supporting health equity in Bloomington, Indiana, and Madison, Wisconsin. And I thank you for being here.
Wow, great background. Thank you. I'm looking forward to learning more. Good. Now we have Katie Walker as another panelist. Katie?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Walker. I'm the food shelf director at our food shelf called the Fruit of the Vine Food Shelf. We're a part of Duluth Vineyard Church, so I'm the resident Minnesotan over here hanging out with the Wisconsinites. Our food shelf has existed informally and formally for the last 2 decades. It started with just some food that people from our church had donated and kept in a closet and gave it to anyone that came and had need. And now it's grown to a formal food shelf over the last decade or so. We serve between 250 to 450 unique households every month. We run our food shelf 2 times a week, and guests can come 2 times now every calendar month. We've been able to increase that over the pandemic as there's been more need. We now run a delivery service for groceries. We have a clothing closet and winter gear closet that guests can shop in. We do an Adopt a Family program for Christmas, where we can sponsor families with children to receive gifts and practical gift cards for Christmas. And then we also do a monthly produce giveaway on top of other food distributions for our guests as we partner with Second Harvest Food Bank over here in Minnesota. And then we also have a garden that our volunteers run and bring fresh extra produce to our food shelf. I have worked for the Vineyard Church for about 6 years. I come with a background in communications and then a master's in nonprofit management, and I just have loved growing into food security work and getting to partner with our church to help reach our community. So thanks for having me today.
Great, thank you. And lastly, we have Kris Knott. Kris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Patti. Hello, everyone. My name is Kris Knott. I'm a volunteer with the Hudson Area Backpack Program. Our name is a bit of a misnomer. We've grown into much more than a backpack program, but that's how we started 15 years ago. So our backpack program serves just primarily the Hudson School District. But it started out as a summer program. It has grown into a drive-through distribution, grocery distribution all year round now. That serves primarily the Hudson School District, but it's open to anyone in St. Croix County. We also run a free grocery store that is open to anyone in St. Croix County. We work with the local YMCA. They have a tunnel garden, so we try and hand out their fresh fruit and vegetables that we can get to families. We have a partnership also with a local church, and we run a mobile food pantry with them. So we've got lots of exciting things to going on here in Hudson.
Great, terrific. Super. Well, thank you each of you panelists for introducing yourself and your program to us. I know the people who are listening also have some great programs that they're running, so I hope we can learn from each other. One of the themes that each of you mentioned is that nutrition space. And what really struck me is that many of you have talked about your programs evolving. Dale, you talked about how you've expanded and partnered with community and even merged with community. And Katie, I love the idea of going from a closet to a full-blown food program. So over the years, we have all kind of evolved to address the need and nutrition. So let me ask the group, and again, we're going to kind of go through. We're going to go through each of you, and I'll let you know. I'll call you by name so you know who should speak. But I want to talk a little bit more about why that nutrition and health equity piece is so important to your program, especially now as we've all learned more about that. So, Dale, why don't you start us off with talking about why that nutrition piece is so important to you?
Well, as when I first took over, I was really concerned about not only giving people who needed food to as a supplementary pantry, but I thought we should be giving them out some foods that are more nutritious. And so we worked towards decreasing the amount of salt we had in our program and the amount of sugar. So over the last 6 years, we've been able to decrease the amount of salt we give out just in the food we have by 26% and the amount of sugar by 31%. Just by being careful how we purchase the food. It doesn't do our people any good to give them things that are not good for them. So we thought the better we could provide them, the more we can gear them and structure their understanding of nutrition by the foods that we provide. And so by being careful to make sure that we don't provide things that are not healthy for them, that naturally got them in the mindset of what is better for them. And we kind of guided them through that process. In our educational programs, we've also done classes on nutrition, good carbohydrates, bad carbohydrates, good starches, bad starches, and those kind of things, how to cook without salt, and how to grow. We started doing conversation cups, which we grow oregano and basil in little coffee cups in the windows. And we call them conversation cups because we want them to talk to their neighbor and have their neighbor go, "What is that?" And well, I'm growing oregano. And then we also taught them how to propagate so they could give that plant to their neighbor as well and teach them how to cook without salt. That grew into garden buckets, teaching people how to think more long-term about their nutrition rather than just for today. We are supplemental, so we do give them 7 days, 21 meals worth of food, but we wanted them to start thinking for themselves more long-term. And so when we started doing meal planning, one thing we did was garden buckets, where we plant an entire meal in a bucket. And we use buckets because everybody has a step they can put a bucket on, but not everybody has a place to put a garden table or to dig up soil. So we wanted them to be able to participate in that as well. So we started a garden part, which of course grew into our garden tables, which we had our clients actually plant and weed and nurture. And through our rain recovery program with rain barrels and stuff, they were able to water it. And we designed it so that it could not be overwatered, because one person would come in and want to water. Half hour later, someone else comes in, they want to water too. So we intentionally designed it so that it could not be overwatered. And then all that produce went straight into the program so that other people could participate. And then that grew into our hydroponics program as well. So getting people to think about nutrition by the way we provide nutrition was how we started that key thing. Patti?
Katie, you also talked about the gardens that you have. How did that really get started for you, and how important is that to your program?
Yeah, we had some volunteers that headed that up that just wanted to do a community garden. It started with volunteers from our church that just wanted to provide more fresh foods for our food shelf. And we also had a need for a place to put more compost. When we receive some bad donations, they wanted to see it come full cycle. So be able to use compost and help with our garden and then produce something good out of that. So it's grown to a really large garden that we have on our property. And we actually have a couple guests that will help us do gardening there too and provide it for the food shelf. But it's nice to be able to cater specifically, things that we might not get on a regular basis from our food bank and be able to produce that ourselves and bring it and have some different fresh options. Also, like herbs and different things that guests might not have in their diets regularly, or beets or some more items like that. It's been fun to be able to provide different recipe ideas with those. And some of our volunteers who run the garden also come and serve in our food shelf and are able to say like, hey, we grew this and here's how I would use it in my home, and just have that education piece, but in a really natural conversation when somebody's taking them through as they're choosing their options, saying, here's how I use it at home. Here's an idea for you, or what do you like to eat? Throw basil in your spaghetti with pasta sauce that you got here, and how to add just some fresh items into the other shelf stable things that we provide has been really beneficial.
I love that. Jules, when you talked about your nutrition and your attention to nutrition and specifically gardens, what does that look like for you over in Middleton?
So what we have is our community gardens that are supported by the clients we serve. They are notified of our opening plots that are available, and they get a chance to sign up for each of the plots and then spend maybe an hour a week growing vegetables that interest them. In addition to that, we have community gardens that are volunteer-based and cared for by our volunteers, and that produce is brought into our food pantry. And then each week we list those items so that household members can choose them based on their family size and based on their personal taste. Now, prior to the pandemic, what they used to do is bring in a lot of produce and then ask people on a book dry erase board, what interests you? And so that nutritional piece was personalized. We tried our best, or I should say they, because I've only been here for 14 months, they tried their best to meet the needs of all community members and support equity among them.
Yeah. Heidi, one of the things you said when you were introducing yourself was that you really like to spend time listening to the clients that you're working with and spending time with them, so and then you also mentioned nutrition. So what are you learning from some of your clients around that nutrition piece, and how has that affected your program?
Sure. We've really learned, and of course, like everybody else, the pandemic has kind of changed what that looks like and what kind of conversations we can have. But we're still able to have them. And one thing we've learned over the past 2 years, where we've really made a decided effort to increase the produce that we distribute, increase the whole grains that we're using, reduce the sugar, like Dale said, is that our clients really do have an interest in these products, and sometimes just need a little extra boost and just say, well, I guess I would take whole wheat pasta, but my kids won't really eat it. Do you have any tips or suggestions? So we can then have volunteers who will say, yeah, actually, I have young kids. I tend to cook it for a few extra minutes. It makes it a little more palatable to a toddler. And then the client will take that advice. We also have, I think Katie was talking about this, our volunteers who will hear what our clients were talking about. Oh, those cranberries look interesting. Or this, what am I going to do with a canned cranberry besides at Thanksgiving? and they'll come in with family recipes that they've cooked for years. And then we kind of laminate them and put them up and have little slips that clients can take home with them. Of course, like the indoor shopping pre-pandemic is not something we're doing right now, but we have it available outside for folks. We've set up an outdoor farmers market style situation at our drive-through pantry. So clients can come out and say, I actually really have no need for eggplant, but they can pick exactly what they want and take however much they need of it. I think we're also learning that sometimes, produce spoils easily, and we just have to pay attention to kind of the space that an individual has and the capacity they have at home. And so sometimes it's not as simple as like they don't want the product, they just don't know how to store it right, or they don't have the space to store it right. So let's prepackage it, or let's, find a way to get a frozen version of this item or a canned version that's going to be more shelf stable. So really just adapting different types of foods to make sure we're still giving that nutrition, choosing, canned foods that are low salt or no salt, if that's the route we're taking. So I don't know that I answered your question, but we've really mostly learned that, recipes are really helpful. We've done, like Dale said, we have a volunteer who's a retired nurse who has come in and will do cooking lessons as well. And we'll teach folks how to prepare really easy meals, and really just giving those tools and doing it together. So having a lesson in combination with the ingredients that someone needs to make it and a printed recipe is really just like taking away any barriers that folks may have, is what we've been doing most recently.
So, and it's funny, it's not just the kids that struggle with that, adapting to things like whole grains. It's my husband, fights me all the time when I serve him a whole grain, and we're working on it. And he's much older than those children you're referring to.
Yes, it even goes for the low fat dairy and all of that.
All of that, and it is. I love the word that you use, adapting, because it is really adapting. Everybody has the ability to learn or shift their tastes, but it is getting that ability to try it, to learn what to do with it, to know how to use it, and then just doing it several times until that new taste becomes something that they're used to. Kris, you also mentioned gardens when you were introducing yourself, so I have to give you a chance to tell us about the gardens and why you invested in that direction.
That grew through a partnership with another local nonprofit, actually two nonprofits. So yeah, they built what's called a tunnel garden, and they provide us produce as long as they can for the season. What we really like about it is it's much more interesting produce than we can get from just our normal food bank, the basics. We get really nice heirloom tomatoes and wonderful lettuces, and our families just love it. And like Jules mentioned, we have a chalkboard, so as they drive through, we list what we've got available, and then they can choose what they want when we've got all those fun things. So yeah, it's been a great partnership. So
in Wisconsin, we have a very shortened growing season comparatively, although with climate change, it seems like it's getting longer. I mean, who'd have thought it'd be so beautiful in October? But how have you guys found any way to continue that produce usage through the winter months? Dale, I know you said you have hydroponics, so that might be helpful for you to share a little bit how you're using your hydroponics.
Yeah, we had through Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, we are part of the Direct Connect program. And so every day our truck goes out to the Walmarts and Aldi's and IGAs and Quick Trips and all them and picks up produce and brings it back. Well, we got to a point where as we were working one-on-one with our clients during screening and explaining how to use each of those individual fresh produce, we ended up running out all the time. And so I had worked with hydroponics in the past. And so I mentioned to one of the gals in the health department that I really liked the idea of being able to do hydroponics year round. So we have fresh produce year round. And I was able to get through the health department a grant to purchase my first unit. And then that unit worked so well that the manufacturer, who's actually in Appleton, came and visited our site and spent some time with me. And through another granting process, I was able to get up to 4 units. So I'm running 4 units now. We plant them a week apart. So every single week I harvest 1 unit and we give fresh lettuce to 80 families. But it started out with just a desire to make sure that they had fresh produce that they could work with. I mean, we do glean at the farmer's market. We do glean from farmers' fields. We have a lot of people bringing in things from their gardens. We have our garden tables, the garden buckets. So we're trying to get the people more towards the idea of using fresh fruit and fresh produce in their diets to increase the nutritional value, even to a point of getting like NutriBullet babies and teaching people how to make baby food on their own from fresh produce and things. And that has grown over really well in a partnership with the Elks to purchase those and put them in the hands of young families. So the idea of getting them not only used to, but educating them on it. And we have found in the last couple of years, they want to know. They really, really want to know and expand their horizons on what they can do to increase the nutritional value of what they're eating. Food insecurities does have a tendency to be overbearing for some of our people. And so they buy the cheaper things like ramen and things. And we try to steer them from that. But we need to give them the resources in their hands to get them to steer away from those bad habits of a quick meal and to actually take 5 minutes in the kitchen to come up with something good. And so, yeah, we do pull things from the hydroponics. We actually have our clients involved in that and the harvesting of that. And we have people even come in and they say, what day are you harvesting? And they'll call me on a Tuesday. So we're not harvesting until Thursday. They'll wait till Thursday to come because they want the lettuce, And sometimes we even sneak in a little bit of spinach and stuff in there. We just don't tell them. But yeah, we got it to a point where we wanted to be able to provide that year round for them. And the program has been extremely successful. And yeah, we're limited to only about 80 families a week that we can impact with our fresh produce, but it's 80 more than we had before.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. The hydroponics has really been taking off, and it's something that if we want to talk more, we can save that a longer conversation at the end because it is an interest area for a lot of pantries to extend that fresh produce through the winter. We did have a question from Patrick at the Sheboygan Food Bank that I think it's going to fit perfectly here, but could our panelists talk about any formal nutrition goals that you have or formal nutrition measuring that you have so that we can talk a little bit more about how you measure. I know, Dale, you had mentioned you went down 29% in salt and sugar. How do you measure some of your nutrition pieces?
Well, I started by just looking at the labels. I spent a considerable amount of time with nutritionists and with people whose actual livelihood is instructing people how to be more nutritious and how to develop a healthier eating pattern. And by spending time with them, I got to understand, when you're looking at a box, what those numbers on the side actually mean. And some of them are almost generic, but when you look at it and you see the salt content and that stuff or the nutritional value, how much of that is really valuable to the person themselves under consumption. And by understanding what we were purchasing and putting on the shelf, that's when I started realizing how much salt we were actually introducing into their diets. And that really saddened me. And I thought, how can we do this, our clients, such a disservice? And so by doing a little bit of research and finding out, that, hey, it's okay to have cornflakes instead of frosted cornflakes. It's okay that, when you can have, frosted mini wheats, which are far more nutritious than having Cocoa Puffs, and going through down that way and seeing what we purchased. There is a lot of stuff out there, low sodium vegetables, low sodium spaghetti sauces that are available on the market. By asking our people, because on our website we have a current needs list, by making sure they know that we actually prefer low sodium products. Our donors have actually stepped up as well. And so by making sure that what we have available is the best product that we can, obviously fresh is the better way to go. But if it has to be canned, make sure that what we provide, even in canned or box foods, are actually to the best value for our clients. Not only do we need to feed them, but we need to make sure that we're feeding them in a way that's not going to hinder them in their growth, mentally and physically, but also that doesn't add to any problems they currently have, like diabetes or heart condition and with too high salt content and stuff. So by making sure that we purchase in a way that those labels make more sense nutritionally, that's just how we started with that. And then Then I had them actually go through and assess all the food we did. And then a year later, we came back and we just randomly pulled the card out of service and did an assessment again. And that's how we were able to determine that. And we did it every year for 3 years, making sure that whatever we have available, to the best of our ability, obviously we take things that are donated. We still do give out, sugar cereals, because when they come in donated, you're not going to throw them away. But we encourage the people who are doing the donated, or when we do purchase, to make sure. And I've seen too, Feeding America has been really good about making. We have, the wheat products as well. And I know Kate, you had mentioned about how do you get people to eat like wheat-based products? Well, when you cook the noodles a little longer, or when you add different seasonings, you can actually compensate for that. And it's amazing to see how people respond to that challenge. And I actually went through and did a class where we made spaghetti, one with regular spaghetti sauce and with regular noodles, and the other one with wheat noodles and low sodium salt. And we didn't tell them which was which, and we challenged them to tell us which, simply by the way we seasoned it. And so little things like that too have gotten them to a point where they understand that, hey, just because I get wheat-based or grain-based products doesn't mean I can necessarily eat that in a cupboard, but there's a way to cook it and actually enjoy it. So,
yeah, thank you for that, Dale. I think that's really interesting because I love the idea that you're doing these assessments that just are random, pop-up tests. It's almost like little nutrition audits that you're doing with your team and then helping them understand. So I think that's great. Jules, similarly to you, how do you really monitor that nutritional value and content of your food and make sure that you're going in the right direction with that?
Well, two things that we do here is we recognize people who are gluten intolerant. And in our menu, it's choice-based, and there's an asterisk that is located on the menu to signify that these items are gluten-free. The second thing we like to do is also notify households if something contains peanuts. So we try and recognize allergies to ensure that no one is having an allergic reaction. We also partner with outside agencies such as UW Health. We have 2 dietetic interns that work with our clients in helping them meet the needs of their specific health needs and supporting health equity overall. And then prior to me joining Middleton Outreach Ministries, my predecessor worked with the UW Extension Office, and they used the Safe and Healthy Food Pantries project. So we are looking forward to reopening and bringing that back to the forefront so that we could fine-tune those nutritional needs for our clients and making sure that they are getting what they need in all that we serve.
Great. Thanks, Jules. Katie, I'm going to go a little bit different of a question to you if you have a thought on this. A question came through from our audience that it's kind of becoming more known and accepted that families really do want to eat healthy foods. And it's not necessarily always that they don't have the education to do it, but it's really that time constraint. It's really, how do I have time to make the healthy foods? It's something we all kind of struggle with. Do you have a way that you share with your clients about the healthy foods or how to cook it without really, shaming them when there's opportunities that they're not able to take because of time, especially if they're working multiple jobs? So I know that's a handful of a question.
No, that's a great question. And I think that's right. Like there's a lot of barriers to, having access to healthy foods, but also being able to incorporate that in your diet. So even if we can get them access to healthy foods, fresh foods, not having the time to prepare it in a certain way or learn how to prepare it in a certain way, even if you might know how, you still might not have the time. One thing we see a lot at our food shelf is grandparents that have either formally or informally adopted their grandchildren when they have adult children that are, in prison, or mostly drug addiction is what we see a lot of. And we've even seen grandparents that have adopted from multiple, they have 8 kids living in their house and they're living on Social Security. And not only is that an income barrier, but man, they were not planning to have 8, young children in their house. So I think just having compassion for the guests and understanding what their situation is so that you can and we try to teach this to our volunteers too, to cater the conversation to whatever is realistic for their life at the moment. And so I know somebody mentioned extension program for us too. We've learned a lot from the U of M extension program. What they've called is healthy nudges. And it's like a way of learning how to offer suggestions without being pushy or shaming somebody, like, oh, you don't cook broccoli at home, whatever. And just offering a lot of choice and nudging them towards a healthier choice. But if it's not realistic for their life, food, just having food in the pantry is the best option. So we like our food shelf to look like a grocery store as much as possible, which means we also have donuts and sugar cereal and something that a kid will eat if they're being fussy that week. I know that's like super helpful, as I have a toddler at home that will only eat one thing one week and not the next. So offering lots of choice, being compassionate about their circumstance, offering a nudge in a healthy direction. And if they can't take it and they say, you know what, my kids just really need ramen or something quick at lunch. And then maybe they could use that as an opportunity to say, like, oh, do you want to throw some, broccoli in the ramen while they cook it? It could, it's things that they could add. Or if you're going to get pancakes for a quick breakfast, instead of putting syrup on it, maybe, you could puree some of these strawberries really quick and have a sauce that includes a fruit. So being able to offer some suggestions that more are fitting for the circumstance is what I would say.
I love that. I love the idea that you're allowing choice and space, even when you know that everybody's starting at different spaces. So some people are not ready for, the full nutrition perfection, and they're starting somewhere else. And to allow that, and then those nudges, those little opportunities to insert nutrition and education and and time, we all do it. I mean, we all have that moment when we are just going to break down because we don't have enough time and we just need to get something done. So that compassion for your clients is so critical. But with the eye on the fact that the nutrition is an important piece as an entity for us to give. So Kris, it kind of opened up a question for me though. Sometimes some of the hardest ways to insert nutrition is when you're working through things like backpack programs, because there's so many constraints to what you can put into a backpack. How have you been able to incorporate the thought of nutrition and nudges into a backpack program?
Well, from the beginning, our backpack program always had a focus on feeding the entire family and not just the child, which is different than some programs. So we've always tried to include the contents for an entire meal in that backpack, like for dinner, for example. And then we want to encourage the family not only to eat together, obviously, because that's great, but to cook together as well. We really focus on really simple, quick, easy recipes. And we do that in our drive-through distribution as well. Encourage people, this requires opening a couple of cans and some water and some ground hamburger, and you're done. And just go ahead and try it. We also really encourage freezing. So we, good old Wisconsin people, we know how to make a casserole, right? And a lot of times those casseroles freeze really well. And teaching people how wonderful it is to have that freezer item ready to go. All you have to do is pull it out of your freezer. So double your recipe, and it's so easy and quick. And we've gotten a lot of great feedback from families that, hey, we tried that recipe and it was really great. We have a chicken Parmesan one that we love to tell people, yeah, you can eat egg noodles with this, but it's really great on spaghetti squash, and encouraging them that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Heidi, what are some things that you've done around that nutrition space, or those nudges, or really encouraging families to try things, especially when there's barriers like were mentioned, time or other things?
Yeah. First of all, I love this question because I'm a mom of 3 young kids, and even with all the privileges I have with kind of more solid 9 to 5 day or 9 to 6 day, it's a lot to feed a family. So it's a lot of work. And I think that we've done multiple trainings with our volunteers to teach them what language to use. And I really like how Catherine's question asked about like not shaming folks. And that's a priority for us, because like really the truth is that no food is a bad food if it's in moderation. And so we can teach folks that like, it's, you know, we have mac and cheese in our pantry right now, for example. And sometimes that's just an easy, quick food that you know your kid's going to eat and you need them to feel satiated, and that's okay. And so we'll throw in some broccoli and add a fruit as a side. And really that's an okay lunch. And teaching parents that, okay, maybe in the past you've gravitated toward that ramen. Can you toss the salt packet and use those noodles and incorporate them with some of the fresh veggies we gave you quickly? And then, like you said, package it up and freeze an extra portion so that next week you don't have to do the same thing again. So we've kind of gone through and tried to just give those incremental baby step tips as we can. And sometimes that means like packing lunches for a weekend the night before, because, you know, mom also has to work on the weekend, and then kids have a healthy lunch all ready to go. Still time, it's still exhausting, but actually our feedback from the moms have been like, that's actually helpful. I wouldn't have thought of that. So that's kind of where we went, but primarily for us, because we're such a volunteer-led organization, even if I know how I want to speak about nutrition and language to use, I need to first train my volunteers how to do that, because they're facing our clients as much as I am.
Yeah. You guys are giving me so much to think about. I'm really loving this conversation. Thank you. Can we talk, do any of the panelists do anything with preserving? When we talk about produce, one of the hard things is, and one of you mentioned it, is that it doesn't last as long as other product. Do any of you have any programs where you teach people either how to extend that shelf life of the product, or maybe preserve it in some way, or freeze it or anything like that? I'm curious about that.
We do a class that we call Extending the Harvest. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we get in, like when we get in onions, sometimes they're larger and people are like, well, I can't use a whole onion. So we go through and we teach them how to use a portion of the onion, how to refrigerate a portion of it, and how to freeze a portion of it, so they have it for later. If you dice up an onion, it doesn't take any longer to dice the whole onion than it does half an onion. And then throw it in the freezer and you're ready for the next meal type of thing. And I love what she said about the freezing the meals too, because we've gone through and taught them, well, first, sometimes moderation comes into play. You don't need 3 plates of spaghetti, one or 1.5, you know. But if you make two 9 by 9s instead of a 9 by 13, you can freeze one and eat one. Then you have another meal ready to go. That alleviates the need for going to a ramen. But we do also recognize sometimes that you just need to go there. You know, it's not a sin to go and have ramen for lunch, you know, but we do like to find ways that we can encourage them to have something available that's more nutritious, but readily available, like take it out of the freezer, toss it in the microwave. By extending the harvest, we go through and encourage them to take as much fresh produce as they can and determine what can stay longer in the freezer and actually process it in that way. It's called a knife and bowl, off we go. And so you go through and you teach them how to simply steam something and then freeze it in a certain way that you can save it for 2 or 3 months. So in the middle of winter, you can still have fresh broccoli with your tuna salad and stuff. So it's, you know, it's a way of getting them to think more forward, and it does not really take much more time in processing. So that's kind of how we approach that a little bit. We understand the need for a quick meal sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that, but trying to find ways where they can actually have that quick meal in a healthier manner, and just kind of slowly encourage them to move that in that way. And people think that canning or freezing takes hours and hours, and we show them it doesn't. Yeah,
I love that. Cut up the whole onion, save half of it, and just keep going. I think it's really interesting when you can think of ways to preserve or extend the harvest. That's a good way to think about it, is extending the harvest. And I love the idea that ramen doesn't have to have the packet that goes with it. So you can make the noodles nice and quick and either use half or a quarter or no packet whatsoever and flavor it in another way. That's another way to think of adjusting the nutrition, even if you're still using the same product. So that's pretty clever. We did have a question that I also would like to know the answer to, from Helen. Would anyone want to share about how you handle food waste, produce waste, particularly in terms of do you compost? Do you have partnerships with composters, or how do you handle that food waste?
We at the Jewish Community Pantry have for years, because we get donations of produce, primarily with things that we don't feel comfortable giving to folks for consumption, or clearly are not good for consumption. We take some of it that works in our space. We also have a garden at our JCC and at our camps in Fredonia that all goes to the pantry. And so we take some of it and use it for our own composting purposes, but it's usually even too much for that. And so we have recently just started partnering with Compost Crusaders and added that into my budget. I think it's around $17 a month. So not cheap still, but for us, that's a priority. And it's also kind of goes along with the rest of our mission and how we want to treat the earth and what we want to do with our product. So
I love that. Do any other ones on the panel, do you work with composting, or do you have other clever ways of recycling? Great, just jump in.
Yeah, we have one I call him a very full-time volunteer that is very committed to composting. So he's kind of taken the reins on that for us. We use it for our garden, but there's much more that goes to waste. A lot of times we'll get food from the food rescue program from the food bank. So it's near the end of its life at a grocery store and comes to us. And that's usually where it comes from. We'll sort through some of it. We like to have our volunteers sort through it instead of making our guests do that ahead of time. So we have volunteers come in before our food shelf will be open and sort through the produce. So maybe there's, a package of strawberries where a few are moldy and we can pick through them, compost those. Another way we've been able to, so that volunteer brings them to a different composting site when he can't use it for the garden. But another clever way of some recycling is if we have like a whole thing of strawberries that's bad, or those other plastic containers, our gardening group uses those to package our fresh produce from the garden. So they'll use a strawberry container to package up a portion of spinach or whatever, so they don't have to use more plastic bags, and then it's more sized for the guests.
Yeah, we've done the same thing with our composting. We like to do as much composting as we can, so that when we have our gardening programs, we can actually give them fertile soil to take home and work with, especially with our garden bucket programs. Another thing we do, if we have something excessive, like we had a half a trailer of carrots donated one time, and we only get through so many of them. They don't compost so quickly, so sometimes we will engage local farmers for livestock consumption and give it out that way. But yeah, composting is the best way to go, and we have found with municipalities as well. They're more than willing to take it for free and blend it into their compost as well. So I love the idea of finding a way to get it reused without having to engage any other kind of product. Like you said, no more plastic bags, just reuse what you already have type of thing. So.
Okay. Kris, did you have something to add?
Well, I think Katie's comment about finding a passionate volunteer who is passionate about composting really helps. We have occasionally had those people, but just on the topic of food waste in general, we spend a lot of time talking to families about food waste and really include them in our conversation that, hey, we try not to waste food in our kitchen. We hope you try to do so as well. And, oh, by the way, did you know you can freeze this, this, and this? Like Dale said, you can freeze onion and cheese and trying to educate.
Okay, I think Kris froze. Is that just for everybody or just for me? Okay, Kris, we're going to come back to you, but that was a good comment. It is, that's when you think about food as its entire life cycle, and you think about what can you freeze? How can you use what you have? How can you cook it and then freeze it? All the different ways that you can think about this. But we have to just know that sometimes our guests know that and sometimes they don't. So making all of this knowledge available for people to pick and choose what works for them is really critical. So I think that's all really great. All of you have mentioned at different times about who you collaborate with and partner with in community. And we all know that we really can't do our work alone. I mean, it really does take partnerships. And even if we could do what we wanted to do alone, it's so much better when we're working in community and with partners. So I just want to throw that question out to you. And Jules, we'll start with you. Is what are some partnerships with community that you formed, and what would you suggest to those listening about partnerships and community collaborations?
That's a very good question. So what we have each month is called a top 10 most needed items list. And this list has presided before I joined Middleton Outreach Ministries, in which those responses from the Dry Erase Board populated that top 10 list. And so now that we are in pandemic mode, if you will, we have looked at items in which, whether you as a household members in our drive-through or whether you are talking with our case managers, you have expressed a need of this item. So each month we produce the top 10 list, and we have what I like to call sustaining food drive partnerships. These are agents that ranges from the Boys and Girl Scouts in Middleton to our retirement villages that are in the community. And they take that list and run with it. So whether they are having an event at their site, or like with the Boys and Girl Scouts, they host an annual food drive. They go throughout the neighborhood or even at our local pick and save and collect those items. And then the Middleton Police Department twice a year will host a food drive where they will go to pick and save and pass out our top 10 list. So we are very fortunate to have those community drivers, if you will, in supporting the foods that we need the most that have been expressed by the people we serve. So I would encourage the food pantries to listen to what the people you serve are expressing the greatest need. That could range from coconut milk to even dish detergent. You know what? One lady came through our drive-through and she said, "When are you all going to give out dryer sheets?" Because we had a personal essentials market based on the large supply of household items we had available. So I had to let her know that that was a one-time offer, but I will keep her in mind when we offer that again so that she will be the first person in line. So listen to what your community is saying and encourage them to support you.
Definitely. Heidi, how about you? What are some community collaborations that you have that have been really helpful to you?
Sure. Our community collaborations have been really kind of, I feel like, sustaining through the pandemic, and very much the direction that we're headed is just like the only way we're going to do things moving forward. So first of all, a lot of them have not explicitly had to do with getting the food that we give. A lot of it has to do with just connecting with the communities that we serve. And also some has to do with health and helping residents keep track of their health and monitor their health. So one partnership we've had is with Freighter and the Medical College, who's come out and done through the pandemic, drive-through flu clinics while we're distributing food, blood pressure checks if people ask for them, and additional health checks if they want a screening. We can get a referral. We get pharmacist interns and additional folks out to come and help with that. So that's been one way that we've been really, through the pandemic, lucky to keep the whole health and the whole body kind of in mind. Metcalf Park Community Bridges is one of our main partners. They are community organizers at the heart of one of the communities we serve. And we've worked with them for almost 2 years on a community mural outside our pantry, facing Center Street, which is the main street that our pantry is, inside of. And so we had a whole host of programs this summer. We had a paint and sip where community members and kids could come out and practice painting on little canvases and get to participate in painting the background of the mural. the mural itself was created by residents because we gave out over 100 booklets that asked them, what do you love about Metcalf Park? What inspires you about your community? What kind of love do you see in Metcalf Park? And so the artists that we chose to do this then use those images and those words to create what is on our walls. So it was a really beautiful process, and it was a way for us to meet new residents, people who hadn't come to our pantry before but could use us, and now they know we exist. And it was a great way to find out what people do love about their community. And it's something that we started doing for a grant, and now we feel like it just has breathed such a new air into the work that we do. And when everything shut down and our JCC had access to some commercial distributors that our partners didn't, we brought them toilet paper for their store, we brought them other soap. So it was just about like doing what we could to support one another, and sometimes it wasn't things we planned, and it felt really organic and wonderful in that way.
That's beautiful. I love that you use the phrase, what do they love about their community? There's just something really powerful when you use, love in that way, because you're talking about bringing neighbors together in their own community to own their own community and to take care of each other and to really build that strength that then circles out. So that's very, very cool. Katie, how about you? What are some community partnerships that you engage in?
Yeah, we pre-pandemic, and hopefully again soon, we got to have kind of like a tabling experience in our food shelf. So the way that our space is set up is we would have one big waiting room with coffee and treats that people could hang out in while they're waiting for their turn to go through and shop. And we would it was just this great like community space where people were visiting and hanging out, and our volunteers could chat with people. And then we would have a local nonprofit that would serve similar communities come in and table. So we've had SNAP outreach come, we had Health and Human Services come and let families know about free child and teen checkups or free dental services in town. We had Community Action Duluth come and provide information about their technology program. And so that was a cool way to give other nonprofits just kind of a spotlight. They're trying to get the word out, and we have a captive audience waiting to go through the food shelf. So people really found that beneficial too. There is just help that they didn't know about, and just a way to use that time wisely. Another partnership that I've really loved is we are about a block away from St. Scholastica, an undergraduate college here, and they have their nursing program that we partner with. And so all of the students were one of their sites for learning about health outreach. So their students still have a group of students, maybe about 5 or 6 that'll volunteer with us for the semester. And then after meeting our clients and understanding our food shelf, they come up with their own project as part of their curriculum, where they have to see, what's a health concern that we could address. So one year they noticed that there was a gap in hygiene supplies. So they did their own drive, and especially feminine hygiene products, and noticed that our clients would need access to that. So they did a drive, collected all the products, and set up their own distribution. So we're just kind of like the umbrella that they can work under and learn from, and then they create their own projects. That's been a partnership that's been really cool because it benefits both of us. They get to learn and grow about learning how to serve different kinds of community, and then are coming at it from more of a health perspective. And then our clients get to benefit from that too. So I love that.
It's fantastic that you're using food in kind of the way that it's meant to be, which is to bring people together, and to bring people together in conversation, and to bring people together emotionally. And in your case, you're even using it to bring nonprofits to the forefront, so that you have the attention, and then you bring the nonprofits in so that they can get their word out, and more can be done for people's needs, which I think is fantastic. So thank you. Kris, how about some of the things that you're doing in partnership with community?
Sure. I would say one of our strongest partnerships came through the school district. In the beginning of our program, it was the school district who recognized there aren't enough resources for families in our community. Can you help us? And then they gave us space to start our summer program. We do not have a building at all that is ours. So we are constantly we're homeless a lot. But the school district let us borrow their space for the entire summer and their refrigerators and freezers. So that was awesome. We work with the high school students. It just so happens that where we're located right now, we're across the street from the high school. So we reach out to the high school to have high school students come over and help us on the days that we need food packed or food moved. And we just feel it's really important to model for those young kids and also to give them opportunities, because it's hard sometimes in our community to find volunteer opportunities for young kids. So we give them a place that it's okay for them to come and goof off. We want them to have a good time with us, but we also have them work. And then we have a great partnership with a couple of other nonprofits in town. One of them, they do fundraising for us, but they've also helped us work with other programs in St. Croix County. And I would say that's been the most important one for us, because we were able to learn so much from other people and ways that we could improve. And it really challenged us to look at our weaknesses and see how other people were succeeding where we weren't. And we had to ask ourselves some hard questions as to how could we do things better.
It's always that vulnerable time that we take when we ask ourselves those hard questions about, what are we doing that we could do better? So that, I love to do that exercise with my team as well, is to say, we know we do a lot of good things, but let's just explore what we could do better and focus on that for a little bit. So good exercise. Dale, I know you have mentioned, even to the point that you've done some mergers in your area. What are some community partnerships that you want to lift up and highlight that have been very successful for you?
Well, we started our collaborative works just with initially with other pantries in the surrounding areas. We found that we had resources they did not have, and of course they had resources we did not. And so we started out with just doing that, sharing resources back and forth. And then, like Katie said, we went through and started having people from SNAP and other programs come in, health department stuff, and lend us their expertise for the sake of our clients. The biggest thing that we've always had as our driving force when it comes to collaborative works is the end user, our client. We don't develop collaborations just for us. We develop them strictly for the fact of enhancing or improving the lives of our clients. And we have a model. Everyone who comes into our place, they will always be treated with kindness and respect, and that nobody leaves having been negatively impacted. Everybody will leave being positively impacted. And by bringing in people from WIC or from SNAP and sharing with our clients what is available for them, that is actually enhances their lives as well, and gives those people an opportunity to reach a couple people that they may not necessarily be able to reach otherwise. In the educational classes, I started teaching them myself, and then got to a point where I was doing too much. And so UW Extension came in. I said, well, we can help you with some of those classes. And they've taken over a lot of the classes. And through UW Extension, I've also been able to go through and develop, like when we're working on our fresh produce recipes. We have over 200 recipes now. No matter what you bring in our store, I have a recipe for it. Eggplant, call Robbie, anything you want to bring in, I've got a recipe for it. And so they've been a great resource in that capacity as well. With the gardening program, UW Extension was also able to help me with our initial starts in the spring and stuff, and in the composting. And so people from the UW have actually come over and helped us with our compost piles and learning how to turn them over and how to properly stage them. So just by slowly developing those collaborations, that led us into the next level of reaching out to almost every single nonprofit in the area and saying, how can we help you promote your program, and how can you help us promote ours? And because a lot of the times nonprofit clientele are usually the same across the board for the most part. And by allowing other nonprofits to have a voice here and have their resources being, brought to the attention of our clients here, gives our clients more of an opportunity to reach out. Even in the community gardens, and I know Jules had mentioned this earlier, having a space for our clients for free to have a small garden space. And that grows their interest. And the first people who did that came back, and when we started our garden tables, we almost had to tell them to go home, because they were so excited about our program with it. So by reaching out and touching with every other opportunity that is available for our clients and having those people bring their expertise to us and serve our clients is how our collaboration started. And I know one thing I've often told people when I'm working with other pantries who are starting up and they have a lot of questions is don't do too much. Some people think that they can jump in and have all these other programs come in right away. Take it one step at a time. You don't need to jump in the deep end. Take one step at a time, slowly wade into the waters and get people involved. And as you slowly bring other people in, you'll be surprised who they can bring in as well. So when it comes to collaboration, take it one step at a time, one program at a time, and grow not only in the sense of what they can do for you, but what you can do for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Dale, thank you. And thank you for that reminder. I mean, sometimes it's so easy for us to say yes because it's all important that sometimes we have to remember to say no, or better yet, not right now. I just, I want to do this with you, but we need a little bit of time. That's an important thing for us to do as well, or we do end up overwhelmed. I know there's a lot of collaboration that happens, and it's really because, as you noted, Dale and everyone, that our clients have. Hunger is usually not the only thing that's going on in their life. And so we know that, we see that, we hear that when we talk with the clients. And so we want to make sure that we are connected so that we can really holistically help the individual move forward. In fact, even at the food bank level, in my own organization right now, we are sharing some of our staff with some of the pantries that are struggling coming out of the pandemic, even lending some of our staff for running an organization that lost 3 staff members all at once and needed an interim director to have the time to find somebody. So those partnerships and that listening to your peers as well as those in need are really critical so we can support the whole system and make sure that we have a strong hunger relief system. So now I'm going to shift this a little bit, but I do want to answer, Patrick, if you didn't get your question answered, the hydroponics that we did refer to, it is Fork Farms out of Appleton, or Green Bay, technically, that we were referring to. And Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin has really worked closely with that program. We enjoy partnering to help entities get these machines, but there's other hydroponic systems out there as well. If you have questions about Fork Farms, you can look it up online, or certainly reach out to Dale or myself or others, and we'll get you connected with people who have the hydroponic systems so you can understand what they are and how they work. With that said, and that wasn't a plug for Fork Farms because we don't get any kickbacks. It's just a program that I know Alex used to work for us. I really want to shift this now to forward thinking to see if we can talk a little bit about, and I'm going to ask each of you a question, and you can take it where you want to go with it. But when we're talking about the food and the health equity and the nutrition space, even that bigger thought of how do we actually end hunger? What are some ideas you have for the future, or things that you wish you had time or resources to do because you know that it would make a difference to you? What does your future plans look like? You can take that any direction you want. And I think I'm going to start with Katie on this one.
Sure, that's a big question. I feel like when Dale was saying take one thing at a time, I feel like my tendency is the opposite. I'm like, let's just try everything all at once until it crumbles. But I think one thing we would really like to move forward in is, you guys heard the analogy of like if somebody, this is kind of a long analogy, but stick with me. If someone's throwing the babies in the river, and you try to look at, instead of just looking at, oh, there's this baby in the river, I got to rescue it, and just keep rescuing, looking upstream to see what's causing it. So moving in that direction. So we've had a lot of critique sometimes of people saying, well, you're not solving hunger by being a food shelf, but, you're solving maybe that day or that week or that month, but you're not solving the root cause of it. So I think we need both. We need the Band-Aid. We need to address the hunger that's before us for that day, that week, that month, but also look at the other barriers that our guests are facing that's putting them in this position. So, which is a big, there's a lot of different things that contribute to that. We've named a couple of them today, but I think one thing that we would like to move forward in is doing more community partnerships where we can help guests get connected with the nonprofits that would help them with those barriers. So whether it's legal help or custody help, or it's job training, resume training. Right now, we've just kind of done referrals or had those, table spotlights, but a way to have some of those programs either on site or that we collaborate with other people that are professionals in those areas to help address whatever the cause is that brings them in, and understanding what that is more. So that's, we don't have a direct path towards that, but more collaboration, especially towards like job training, is an interest of ours.
Love that. It is a hard question because we don't ever have enough time to do all the things that we want to do. Jules, how about you? What would be your directions for the future?
If it was just me, because I'm one of many team members at Middleton Outreach Ministry, I would hope to enhance this food system where it would support people from birth to older adults. So, but food isn't the only basic need. One thing that we do at Mom is we also have a housing program for anybody that is doubled up, couch surfing, that's the word that's being used, and they need help with housing. If they live in the Middleton Cross Plains area or the north or west of Beltline, if you're familiar with Madison, Wisconsin, we will try to help them as best as we can. The other is clothing, another basic need. So if you qualify for our services, you're more than welcome to come to our clothing center and shop for yourself and your family. We try to meet people where they are in terms of those services. And then if we're unable to help them, we look to our community partners to see if additional help can be provided so that they are not left alone, whether they are a single parent or they're an older adult. And, I'm just thankful for the 40 years.
Yeah. Being able to address all those needs of a household is just, it's something that is just so special to be able to provide to the families that you serve. So kudos to Mom for being able to do that. So Heidi, how about you? What are you looking at when you look at the future?
So I'm giving myself permission to kind of dream here because, like Katie was saying, I don't have the resources yet for all of this. But, I think, and some of the commenters have commented also on barriers that our clients face. And so in an ideal world, our pantry is just a part of a community space where folks can go and they can get job training. They can use a computer lab to pay bills, to get, update their resume. And then there's legal aid, and there might be a place to access food share and housing support. And so in an ideal world, like our community center is not just here at the JCC, it's also where our food pantry is, and it's serving folks there so that moms that are getting their kids bundled up in the winter don't have to come out and stop at 5 different sites. That they come once, they're inside, and then they get all of their needs met. So again, don't have the funders lined up yet for that, but somewhere, somehow, we're going to figure out a plan that sounds something like that.
I love it. I always think of it like a house. Right now we're really good at our kitchen. We're really good at moving the food or cooking the food or preparing the food. But then there's all the other parts that make up a household, right? People need a place to sleep. They need jobs. They need closets so they have clothes that are in it. And so we're really good at one part of our house, and we have to partner to really make sure that we're pulling together all the pieces so that a family can have everything, because we really can't do it all, and nor should we really. It's the partnerships are really where the value becomes and how we expand. So good. Kris, how about you? What would your future thinking look like?
Our future thinking for our community is really based on making people feel comfortable with getting help and creating an environment where everybody just that this is normal, it's okay. We work really hard to let people know that, we're just distributing, food, and we don't care who comes and gets it. If it will help your economic situation, you just come. We want you there. And that's really hard in our community. We don't have really deep poverty. We do, but it's a smaller percentage of our population. We have a lot of people, though, that struggle with economic issues. And obviously food is part of that. And so if we can just alleviate even that little part, that's really our big picture, is that we want families, every family deserves a chance to thrive. And if this is a way we can help, then just come on down.
Come on down. Just that ability to be able to let people have a place where they know that it is okay to receive some help for now. Most times it's a temporary situation, or just to be able to address something without a lot of stress, and really not explain themselves too much, and just get the help so they can get back on their feet in whatever way that looks for them. I love it. Dale, how about you?
Well, there's a lot of ways we want to grow our program. And with our relocation program right now, we're going to have more space to do that. And I've already started relationships with all the people that I want to eventually grow into our program, about 13 or 14 of them. And then we also want to move towards a way where people know that the first Tuesday of every month, we're going to have SNAP. The third Thursday of every month is going to be WIC. There's always going to be that resource available to them, and put a calendar out there so they know when things are out there, so that when they come to get the food they need. And by having us all together, the idea would be they would come, it would sit at our food program, our meal program, have a meal as a family, and then come over and be part of the educational programs. And from there, go right into the pantry, grab their food, and go home for the month. Kind of have it all done at one time. While they're there, have the resources available, so if they don't know about SNAP or WIC, or they don't know about some of the other programs in the area, that those resources are available, even if just in pamphlet form, so that they can be made aware of those that are there. We want to grow our program so that we become the place to go. We have a lot of people who just love coming. I have a single dad. Every time he's coming to food pantry, he cannot leave the house without his two kids. Otherwise, he hears about it when he gets home. Oh, you went and saw Dale and you didn't bring us along. And they come in, and we just love all over them, and it's fun. I have single moms who come in, and they love it, because after I'm done screening them, I'll take their babies. I'll hold their babies while I'm screening the next 2 or 3 clients while they're out shopping, and sometimes they come back and they want their babies back too. But that, that can be a problem. But it's just making it to the point where they love coming. They're comfortable coming. We have some people who've come from other countries, and one gal, this is the only place she comes when she leaves her home, because she feels safe here. And to be able to know that we can provide that for people, and then while they're here, give them the other resources available to enhance their lives, that's ultimately going to be our goal.
Love it. Thank you. One of the things with this panel is we have these 5 people with all this expertise and years, and all these great visions and dreams and things that have already been successful, and many more plans. But I think what's really interesting is we could probably pick 5 people from any of our hunger relief partners across the entire state and hear the good work that is happening and learn from anyone. So I think what's really interesting is we have so much deep value in talking to each other and sharing with each other, with whatever hunger relief organization, big or small, across the state. There is so much value in what each of you do and what each of us do together. And I'm taking this moment just to say that it is something that I speak to all the time, that it is important that we are talking, that we're talking to each other and sharing with each other and communicating, and most importantly, working together and not against each other for the things that we know have to happen for the good of our neighbors in need. So as we end our last 10 minutes here, I want to, first of all, acknowledge there was a question that popped up in the chat about sharing contact information, and we will make that available to you so you can contact the individuals on this panel about go deeper into any of the information that you heard today. But I want to end the last 10 minutes really giving you, our panelists, the opportunity to have kind of your final say, that anything I didn't ask that you really would like to share with our listeners today and put out there at the end of this panel. I want you to have the last word. So we're just going to kind of zip around to each of you to let you have this chance to share last thoughts. So Dale, I'm going to reverse it now. So Dale, I'm going to start with you and go the other way.
Okay. I would just my parting thought would be just to remember there's a lot of opportunities out there. Just be careful to take only one step at a time. And that as you're learning to network and take advantage of other people's wisdom and experience, just be mindful that not everything is for you. What works for me may not work for you. What works for Katie may not work for Heidi. Just to be mindful that the clientele you serve is going to gear what you can do, what you should do. And then the last thing would be to listen to your clients. Spend the time to listen to your clients.
Yeah. Very, very wise words. All right. Kris, do you have last thoughts for us?
Just the power of collaboration and learning from each other. I'm just so excited to have heard from all of you. I wish I could come and spend a day with everyone just to watch what you do in your pantries, because there's so much good stuff here. So let's keep that up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good. All right, Heidi.
I would just say, this is something we were talking about yesterday with one of our young leadership groups with our CEO here. Is a lot of us are tired from the past 2 years, and it's been a long 2 years of different kind of work. And for people with families, without families, you're drained, I'm drained. But let's take some dedicated time, each of us, and I'm challenging myself to this too, to kind of keep thinking forward, because eventually our new normal or our new existence will happen. And so let's challenge ourselves to take even 30 minutes a week to think about what's going to look like next. And I think you did ask about that, Patti, but just a reminder that we're all doing the best we can, and keep your eyes forward, and we're doing great.
Thank you. That's great words. Good. Jules?
Be sure to thank your volunteers for all that they're doing, for the sacrifices that they may be making just to be at your organization, and even for the little things, because the volunteers, at least here, we cannot do the work we do without them. And so we just let them know how much we appreciate the time that they're spending, their diligence in wearing a mask and socially distancing, and all those things that they do to support us as we support the community. Just be sure to thank them.
Great advice. Wonderful. And certainly in that last but not least, Katie.
Yeah, I would just say one thing that we've been learning is through the whole pandemic and the crazy last year and a bit, is looking for the opportunities or the surprises that have come our way that have been somehow benefits of a global pandemic, and just having that positive mindset where we can look for what good has come out of this. So for us, that's been, we had to start a drive-through program, and all of a sudden with that feedback that we've, loop that we've created with our guests, they're telling us, actually, we love this because I have 4 kids in my car and I do not want to get them out of the car. This was really great. It's people that aren't even concerned about the health safety piece now that we have an option to come inside or stay out. There's other things that have popped up, or this is what's finally pushed us to start a delivery program out of necessity. And we're able to serve a ton more people with disability or without transportation. So just looking for those benefits and seeing the positive, and having those trusting relationships with our guests and trusting them as experts for what they need, and adapting around that has been super beneficial. So yeah, I love learning from everyone today though. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Well, panelists, thank you guys all so much for your time. It wasn't just this session, but just so you know that they met earlier too to talk and prepare. So they've given a lot of time to this session. So thank you very much for all your preparation and your words. A lot of very great advice and thoughts, and I'm all jazzed. I feel like I want to go and learn more about some of the things that were said. I took lots of notes. So thank you very much for your time and for participating. Mostly to all of you who are on the call today, who I can't see, I just want to say thank you to all of you for what you do. I cannot understate, I cannot stress enough how proud it has been to see how Wisconsin Hunger Relief System stepped up in all ways during the pandemic. I mean, we've always been great, but then the pandemic hit and we didn't know what it would bring. And now 2 years later, to look backwards and to know the success that Wisconsin has had to really help families who are struggling. It's really a huge compliment to each and every single one of you and to the work that you are doing and your community partners are doing. So thank you very much. And thank you for everyone on the call and for taking this time. Just a quick reminder, you are able to go to the attendee section on your screen and connect with everybody who's in attendance and see contact information there. So that is where you can go to find information on some of the things you heard today. So thank you guys so much and enjoy your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patti.